At 5:12 local time in the northern Arabian Sea, everything inside the Combat Information Center of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier appears calm. Radar sweeps move steadily across glowing screens. Merchant vessels dot the horizon. Routine patrol patterns. Nothing seems out of place. Then one console lights up. A radar operator leans in. New contact. Range 92 nautical miles. Bearing 041. Low altitude. A second blip appears beside it. Then a third. 3 aircraft. Tight formation. Moving fast. The watch supervisor marks them immediately. Unknown air contacts appear on the large tactical display mounted across the CIC wall. The 3 symbols begin moving steadily toward the carrier strike group. Speed numbers start rising. 400 knots, 450, 500. Someone checks the transponder codes. Nothing. No identification. No flight plan. No radio traffic. Just silence. The tactical action officer speaks evenly. Track them. The SPI radar network widens its sweep and locks onto the 3 incoming aircraft. Their altitude drops again, now just under 3,000 feet, low enough to blend into sea clutter. That is not routine. Inside the CIC, the tension is quiet but immediate. This is exactly the kind of pattern every watch team is trained to catch. 3 aircraft in close formation, no transponders, rapidly approaching a U.S. carrier strike group. The operations officer studies the radar signatures. Run identification. Electronic sensors begin comparing engine heat, radar returns, and airframe shapes against known aircraft profiles. It takes only seconds. The first match appears, MiG-29 Fulcrum. The radar operator looks up, Iranian, but the next 2 returns do not match the same type. Another analyst zooms in on the thermal signature. Different engine pattern, longer fuselage, variable sweep wing. Second aircraft, possible F-14 Tomcat. A brief pause. Iran is the only country in the world still flying them. Then comes the third identification, large radar cross-section. Twin-engine platform, Su-24. 3 different aircraft, 3 different mission roles, and they are flying together. The tactical officer nods slowly. That's not a routine patrol. Out on the carrier's flight deck, sailors move between parked aircraft, preparing for the morning flight cycle. The sea is calm, the sky is pale blue, with thin clouds drifting over the horizon. None of them can see the approaching jets yet. But inside the ship, the picture is already changing. Distance 80 nautical miles. The Iranian aircraft descend again. Altitude 2,000 feet. Speed Mach 0.9. That profile is familiar to naval aviators. Low altitude, high speed, minimal radar visibility. A classic maritime approach. The communications officer switches to the emergency frequency. Unidentified aircraft approaching United States naval forces in international waters. You are entering a monitored zone. Maintain a safe distance immediately. The message goes out across multiple radio bands. Military, civilian, and international guard. No response. The 3 aircraft continue closing. Inside the CIC, the strike group's escorting destroyers begin adjusting posture. Their Aegis radars widen search sectors. Data moves instantly across the fleet network. Every ship now sees the same 3 contacts. An escort cruiser begins calculating intercept options. Another destroyer powers up its fire control systems, not as a threat display, just readiness. Back inside the carrier, a second radio message is sent. Unidentified aircraft, alter course immediately. Again, silence. Distance, 65 nautical miles. That number matters. Beyond 50 nautical miles, many long-range air-to-air systems are already within reach. The tactical officer watches the distance timer counting down. No maneuvering from the Iranian formation, no climb, no radio contact, only speed. Then the electronic warfare station speaks up. New radar emission detected. Every eye in the CIC turns toward the console. The signal is narrow and focused. Not a search radar. A targeting radar. One of the Iranian aircraft has switched modes from search to track. In aviation, that means one thing, radar lock. The radar operator confirms it. Contact Bravo, Iranian F-14 radar active. On the tactical display, the symbol beside the Iranian aircraft changes color. The carrier strike group has just been illuminated by a targeting radar, and the 3 jets are still closing. At 5:16 local time, the 3 aircraft symbols continue sliding across the carrier's tactical display. Their speed remains just below Mach 1. Their altitude drops again, and now barely 1,200 feet above the water. Sea skimming, the kind of flight profile designed to disappear into radar clutter. The tactical officer keeps his voice calm. Confirm radar emissions. The electronic warfare operator checks again. Confirmed. Fire control radar active. The emission is coming from the Iranian F-14 Tomcat, flying slightly behind the lead aircraft. On the screen, the formation becomes even clearer. The MiG-29 leads the approach, fast, agile, built for air-to-air combat. Behind it, the Tomcat holds a slightly higher position. Its radar beam projects forward in a narrow cone, tracking, guiding, and monitoring the carrier strike group. Trailing the formation, the Su-24 strike aircraft flies lower and heavier, hugging the surface of the sea. 3 aircraft, 3 separate roles. Escort, targeting platform, strike aircraft. The tactical officer studies the geometry. They're building an attack corridor. Outside, the Arabian Sea remains calm. The carrier cuts through deep blue water at 20 knots, its escorts holding a defensive ring several miles away. But inside the strike group's network, every radar in the fleet is focused on those same 3 aircraft. Aegis systems aboard the destroyers track them continuously. Altitude, speed, heading, every detail recorded. On the carrier's bridge, the Air Defense Commander listens to the report coming up from CIC. 3 Iranian aircraft continue closing in, flying in a coordinated formation. Distance 50 miles and shrinking. A brief pause. Launch the intercept. On the flight deck below, 2 FA-18 Super Hornets sitting on alert suddenly come to life. Their engines ignite with a thunderous roar. Deck crews snap into motion. Yellow shirts signal directions. Red shirts pull the chocks clear from the wheels. Steam begins rising from the catapult track. Inside the cockpits, the pilots complete their final checks in seconds. They have already heard the warning over the ship's internal network. Unknown aircraft approaching fast. Possible hostile intent. The catapult officer drops his hand. The first Hornet blasts into the morning sky in a violent surge of steam and power. Seconds later, the second follows. Both jets bank immediately toward the threat axis, but they still have altitude to gain and distance to cover. Back inside the CIC, the radar picture tightens. Distance, 48 nautical miles. The Iranian formation remains steady. No hesitation, no course change. Then the electronic warfare console lights up again. A new signal spike. The operator zooms in on the radar emissions. The Tomcat's radar beam sharpens. Power output rises. This is no longer simple tracking. This looks like weapons guidance preparation. Another officer checks the MiG-29. The fulcrum is drifting slightly left. On the display, the lead aircraft shifts position, opening space and creating a corridor. Behind it, the Su-24 drops even lower. Altitude, now just 800 feet above the ocean. The strike aircraft is lining up. The tactical officer speaks quietly. That bomber is setting up for an attack run. The Su-24 was never built for dogfights. It was designed as a maritime strike aircraft, capable of carrying heavy anti-ship weapons, the kind built to seriously damage major warships from long range. Inside the CIC, the air defense clock keeps counting. Time to intercept, 5 minutes. Time to missile engagement range, less than 2. On another console, one of the escort destroyers activates its fire control radar. The Aegis system begins calculating intercept options automatically. Standard missile batteries unlock and stand ready. But nothing is launched. The rules of engagement remain unchanged. Do not fire unless the threat is unmistakable. Then the electronic warfare station speaks again, louder this time. Radar spike confirmed. All eyes turn toward the console. The Tomcat's radar has switched modes again. This time, the signal locks onto one specific target, the aircraft carrier. Inside the CIC, warning indicators flash across multiple screens. Target lock detected. The Iranian F-14 now has a firing solution. Distance, 42 nautical miles. For a long-range missile, that is more than enough. One officer exhales slowly. They're committing. Outside the carrier, the sea still looks peaceful. Nothing on the surface has changed. But 40 miles away, 3 Iranian jets are flying straight toward the most powerful naval force in the region, and one of them has just armed its weapons system. Seconds later, the radar operator confirms it. The Iranian jet's targeting radar stabilizes. Lock sustained. The weapons officer studies the display, then quietly says words every sailor in the room immediately understands. Missile launch parameters achievable. The Tomcat holds the lock for 3 seconds. 4, 5. Then a sudden flash appears on the radar scope. The Iranian aircraft has just fired. At 5:17 local time, inside the Combat Information Center, the radar operator sees it first. A new contact bursts onto the tactical screen. Small, fast, accelerating. The symbol flashes red. Missile launch. The room goes silent for half a second. Then the tactical officer speaks. Confirm track. Another console locks onto the object instantly. Its speed climbs past Mach 2. Low altitude. Heading straight for the carrier strike group. Confirmed. 1 missile inbound. On the large digital map dominating the CIC wall, a track line stretches from the Iranian F-14 toward the American fleet. Estimated time to intercept, 90 seconds. That is the timeline now. 90 seconds from launch to possible impact on a warship. The Air Defense Commander does not hesitate. Engage defensive systems. Across the carrier strike group, the response begins almost immediately. On board an escorting Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the Aegis combat system shifts from tracking mode to engagement mode. The ship's spy radar tightens its beam and locks onto the inbound missile. Every movement is now measured hundreds of times per second. Speed, heading, flight profile. A firing solution is calculated automatically, but the destroyer's captain waits, because something else begins first. Inside the carrier's electronic warfare station, another alarm sounds. Electronic warfare is active. Operators begin transmitting powerful electronic signals into the air. Invisible waves flood the sky between the fleet and the incoming missile, jamming frequencies, creating false targets, distorting signals. The goal is not to destroy the missile. Not yet. The goal is to confuse it. 40 nautical miles away, the missile continues racing toward the strike group, but it is not flying on its own. It depends on radar guidance. The Iranian F-14 still holds the targeting lock, feeding data to the weapon as it closes. At least, that is how it is supposed to work. Inside the Tomcat's cockpit, the pilot watches the guidance display closely. The missile should be tracking cleanly. Instead, the data begins to flicker. The radar return weakens, then shifts. The pilot frowns. Something is interfering with the signal. Back inside the American strike group, the electronic warfare systems intensify. Multiple ships are now broadcasting jamming signals at the same time. A coordinated wall of electromagnetic noise spreads across the sky. The missile begins receiving conflicting information. Instead of one clear target, its seeker now detects dozens. False echoes, ghost ships, shifting radar reflections. The guidance computer tries to correct, but every correction leads into more distortion. Inside the CIC, the radar operator watches the missile track begin to wobble. Missile losing stability. The tactical officer leans forward. Distance, 30 miles. The missile should still be driving straight toward the carrier. Instead, its track starts drifting. Only slightly at first, then more noticeably. Electronic warfare is doing exactly what it was designed to do: break the missile's lock. Meanwhile, high above the ocean, the two FA-18 Super Hornets launched from the carrier climb hard toward the threat axis. Their radars sweep the airspace ahead. The pilots already know what happened. Missile launch detected. They push their engines harder and keep closing. Inside the CIC, the inbound weapon continues to struggle. The guidance signal flickers again. The radar operator points at the screen. It's searching. That means the missile has lost its primary lock. Now its onboard seeker is hunting for any target that matches its programming. But the sky ahead is saturated with interference. The missile banks slightly left, then right, trying to reacquire. But every time its radar scans forward, the signal dissolves into noise. 20 miles. Still no stable lock. Inside the Iranian F-14, the pilot tries to maintain guidance, but the American electronic warfare systems are overpowering the signal. The radar beam begins to break apart. The missile is now effectively blind. Back in the carrier's CIC, the tactical officer watches the track carefully. Status? The radar operator shakes his head. No stable target acquisition. 10 seconds later, the missile drifts completely off course. Its seeker scans nothing but open ocean. The carrier strike group remains hidden behind an electronic wall of distortion. The missile keeps flying forward, but no longer toward its intended target. Finally, at extreme range, it runs out of guidance energy. Its flight path bends downward. The radar track fades, then disappears. It impacts harmlessly into the sea. Inside the CIC, no one celebrates. No cheers. Just calm, professional confirmation. Missile splash. One threat neutralized. But 40 miles away, the Iranian strike formation is still coming. And now, American fighters are closing in. At 5:19 local time, the missile is gone. Its radar track vanished from the screens moments earlier, ending harmlessly in the open sea. But inside the Combat Information Center, nobody relaxes, because the 3 Iranian aircraft are still approaching. Distance, 34 nautical miles. Speed, Mach 0.92. Formation intact. The MiG-29 still leads the approach, slicing low across the ocean surface. Behind them, the F-14 Tomcat keeps its radar trained forward, though its lock is no longer as strong under the carrier group's growing electronic interference. At the rear of the formation, the Su-24 strike bomber stays low over the water, holding at just 700 feet. The tactical officer studies the geometry carefully. They're still committed. Even without a successful missile hit, the Su-24 could still release anti-ship weapons if it reaches the right launch distance. Inside the CIC, the intercept clock keeps ticking. Then a new voice cuts across the air defense channel. Viper 1, radar contact. The first FA-18 Super Hornet launched from the carrier has arrived over the area, 30,000 feet above the ocean. The American fighter levels out and locks its radar onto the approaching formation. 3 contacts appear instantly. Confirmed. 3 hostile aircraft. The pilot's voice remains calm and controlled. Seconds later, the second Super Hornet joins him. Now the balance in the sky begins to shift. Back inside the carrier strike group, the destroyers continue tracking every aircraft on radar. Electronic warfare systems keep pouring interference into the battle space, but the real pressure is now coming from above. The American fighters descend rapidly toward the Iranian formation. Altitude, 20,000 feet. Speed, Mach 1.1. Closing fast. Inside the cockpit of the Iranian MiG-29, the radar warning receiver suddenly comes alive. A sharp tone fills the pilot's headset. He glances at the display. A radar beam is tracking him, not from the carrier, from above. American fighters. The MiG-29 pilot shifts slightly to the right, trying to identify the threat. Seconds later, the crew of the F-14 Tomcat sees the same warning. 2 separate radar locks. High altitude, fast approach. That can only mean one thing. The interceptors are already within engagement range. Back inside the American Super Hornet, the pilot calls out the distance. 30 miles. His radar paints the Iranian formation clearly. MiG-29, F-14, Su-24. 3 different aircraft flying in close coordination. He locks onto the MiG-29 first. The targeting system stabilizes instantly. The fire control computer produces a clean solution, but he does not fire. Not yet. Because the objective is not to destroy the aircraft. The objective is to stop the attack. Inside the carrier's CIC, the radar operator watches the situation unfold across the tactical display. The geometry is changing fast. The Iranian formation now faces 2 American fighters descending from high altitude, while the full carrier strike group remains directly below. The tactical officer watches the numbers update. Distance to carrier, 28 miles. At that range, the Su-24 would need only moments to launch anti-ship weapons. But the Iranian pilots now face a different problem. American fighters are directly above them. The MiG-29 pilot checks his warning display again. 2 radar locks. Strong, stable. American missiles could reach him long before he ever reached the carrier. Inside the Super Hornet cockpit, the pilot tightens his turn and drops lower. He slides into position just off the MiG-29's left side. He is not firing. He does not need to. He is now close enough to make the message unmistakable. The second Hornet angles toward the F-14 Tomcat. Now both American fighters hold the high ground over the formation. For several more seconds, the Su-24 continues forward. Then its pilot sees the same warning lights flash, 2 separate missile locks, both American. At that moment, the Iranian pilots understand the situation clearly. The attack corridor they had been building is gone. Instead of closing on an exposed carrier, they are now flying straight into a layered defensive net. Destroyers tracking them from below, electronic warfare disrupting their systems, and American fighters dominating the sky above. Inside the carrier's CIC, the tactical officer speaks quietly. They're boxed in. The radar display confirms it. 3 Iranian aircraft, 2 American interceptors, and an entire carrier strike group beneath them. For the first time since the encounter began, the Iranian formation hesitates. Their speed starts to fall. Their altitude rises slightly. A small change, yeah, but inside the CIC, everyone understands what it means. The Iranian pilots have realized something. The closer they move toward the carrier strike group, the more information the U.S. Navy was collecting. Radar signatures, communications behavior, electronic frequencies, every detail. What they believed was an attack approach has turned into a surveillance trap. And now they are flying straight through it. At 5:23 local time, altitude 18,000 feet, the 2 FA-18 Super Hornets hold position above the Iranian formation like silent shadows. Below them, the MiG-29 adjusts course slightly, its wings rocking as the pilot scans the sky. The radar warning receiver inside the cockpit still sounds the same steady tone. American radar lock. It has not faded. It has not weakened. It is deliberate. 30 miles away, the U.S. aircraft carrier continues moving steadily across calm water. From the outside, the strike group looks unchanged, steel hulls slicing through open sea. But the invisible network around it is fully alive. Every radar beam, every electronic frequency, every maneuver, all of it is being captured inside the carrier's combat information center. The tactical display lays out the geometry with perfect clarity. 3 Iranian aircraft, 2 American fighters, 4 escort ships, 1 carrier. Every system is connected through the fleet data network. The tactical officer studies the Iranian formation carefully. They're slowing. The radar operator confirms it, speed dropping from Mach 0.92, now Mach 0.78, altitude climbing gradually. The Su-24 bomber is the first to fall out of its attack profile. Its nose lifts slightly as the pilot climbs toward a safer maneuvering altitude. That alone says a lot. Strike aircraft climb only when the attack is no longer realistic. High above them, the lead Super Hornet pilot watches through his helmet display. His radar remains firmly locked on the MiG-29. His weapons system is ready. One button press would send an AIM-120 AMRAAM racing toward the Iranian fighter at nearly 4 times the speed of sound. But he doesn't press it. Instead, he holds the lock just long enough to make the message impossible to miss. Inside the Iranian cockpit, the MiG-29 pilot checks his instruments again. 2 American fighters above him, both already within missile range. Behind him, the F-14 Tomcat tries to regain radar stability. Its powerful AWG-9 radar sweeps the sky once more, searching for the carrier strike group. But the signal breaks apart almost instantly. Electronic interference still blankets the airspace. Target lock. Impossible. The Tomcat's radar operator mutters something quietly over the intercom. They cannot guide another missile. They cannot see clearly through the electronic haze. And now, the American fighters are close enough to respond immediately. Inside the carrier's CIC, the radar operator follows every movement. MiG-29 altering heading. On the tactical display, the blip begins to drift. At first, only slightly. Then the turn becomes unmistakable. The aircraft is no longer heading toward the strike group. It is turning away. Seconds later, the Su-24 bomber follows. Its heavy wings roll slowly as the aircraft banks east. The F-14 Tomcat holds course for a few moments longer. Its radar continues searching for a stable return. Then its heading changes too. 3 aircraft, all turning away. Inside the CIC, the tactical officer watches the maneuver unfold. No celebration, just confirmation. Bandits disengaging. High above the ocean, the American Super Hornets hold their position for several more seconds. They shadow the Iranian aircraft just long enough to make sure the message is fully understood. Then the lead pilot breaks radio silence. Carrier control, Viper 1. Hostile aircraft turning east. Attack profile terminated. The carrier responds immediately. Copy, Viper 1. Maintain escort until clear. Below them, the Iranian formation picks up speed slightly, heading back toward the distant coastline far beyond the horizon. The Su-24 climbs higher. The MiG-29 levels off. The F-14 Tomcat's radar finally powers down. Inside the carrier strike group, sensors continue tracking the aircraft long after they begin fading from range. Radar signatures recorded, electronic frequencies captured, missile guidance behavior analyzed. Every piece of data is stored. Inside the CIC, the tactical officer leans back slightly as the radar contacts fade toward the horizon. Just 5 minutes earlier, 3 Iranian fighters had approached the most powerful naval force in the region in a coordinated attack formation. They launched a missile. They activated targeting radar. They closed to strike distance. But what they left behind was something very different. Their radar systems had been mapped. Their electronic signals had been captured. Their tactics had been exposed. Outside, the Arabian Sea grows quiet again. The carrier continues forward, its escorts holding steady formation. Above them, the 2 Super Hornets circle once more before turning back toward the ship. The encounter is over. No fireballs, no close-range aerial duel, no wreckage falling into the sea. But somewhere inside the U.S. Navy's intelligence network, analysts now possess something even more valuable than a visible victory. The full electronic fingerprint of the Iranian aircraft that tried to challenge them. And the next time those jets appear on radar, the carrier strike group will already know far more about how they operate.